Hey friends, it's Dimitri with the Brushka Streetwear. So in front of me I have some new designs that I made for February. That's when we released them. And I think the design itself looks really cool, especially on the white t-shirt. But this video is not about that, and it's not about explaining that. This video is about explaining quality and some screen printing issues that I've had with a local vendor and the frustrations that I've been experiencing and kind of what I'm going to do next with that. So I hope that this video will help you guys make good decisions when you are choosing who to work with. So I have been working with this screen printer for almost 6 years. So on March 21st, that's going to be my 6-year anniversary of opening my website and all of that. So a little bit under 6 years I've been working with them. And they, at first, they, were very dependable. They would get stuff done at a reasonable time. I didn't have much issues. I did have some issues here and there with them, but they'd either be resolved or it wasn't that big of a deal, right? About the 4th year or so, that's when something switched in the company, and I don't know what happened, but the margin of error went up and all sorts of problems started to happen from there on out, and quality went down. And this project is probably the worst batch of clothing I've received from a vendor, specifically them. And it's been extremely frustrating for me. So I was waiting for this design for longer than I should have. And when I finally received it, it was not at all up to spec on what a screen print should look like. Now, you guys might not be able to see it so well on the screen, but I'll explain what the problems were. So on the black t-shirts, when you're printing on black, if you're printing with white ink or yellow or some very light colored ink, you have to double it up. It's like almost a requirement, because the black t-shirt or the dark color t-shirt, it's going to show through the ink, and it's not, your design's not going to pop out as well. So this one, as you could tell, you can see the black t-shirt kind of through the ink a little bit too much. It's almost like acceptable, but for me, I don't think it is as much. Here's another example of a very you can see the t-shirt through this very easily. Now here's an example of a good print that another company made that I use, which is gonna get all my business now. It's doubled up. It pops out really well. That's the thing. Your design needs to be visually appealing. It needs to pop out. And when you don't double up the ink like that, look at that, you can see through it. And at first glance, and when you get it, it's not like the biggest deal, but over time as you wash this, it's gonna fade and fade and fade, and it's gonna not look good at all. Whereas this, when you wash it, it's doubled up and it's not gonna fade as fast or as much, and it's still gonna look really great. That was something that was very frustrating to me, because in the past they would always double up the ink. I was even explained this when I first came there. The guy was like, hey, we need to put 2 layers of ink on here because it's dark t-shirt and it's going to pop out like that, and that's kind of an industry standard. And over time they kind of skimped on that. They stopped doing that, and that was really frustrating. And this last batch of t-shirts, a solid 25% of the product is something I can't sell on my normal price and on my website. They're going to go into like the reject bin, and if people want that, they can buy it. And that was really frustrating. Another problem that I've been having recently with them is that for some reason they just can't do tags. Here's the interior tag. As you could tell, it's already peeling in there, the vinyl that's heat pressed in there, this one. Literally most of the t-shirts, all of the tags are just messed up. Like, it's never been this bad. This is the worst batch I've ever got. And that's also been very, very frustrating, because when the tag is too bad and it's just peeling really, really bad, I also throw this in the reject bin. And that just means, there's less of the standard product to sell at the standard price, and now I have to sell it on a discount, and I just lose profit on everything. And obviously, I don't want to sell a product that's subpar. It's not to some standard for the customer, because that's the whole point. When you're running your brand, you and the customer have trust between each other. And when you're working with a vendor or printer or manufacturer, you're also having that trust. And the more you break that trust, the farther and farther you're going to get apart. And at some point, your customer or your vendor or you're going to split off. And this has been assigned to me to split off because I can no longer trust them to get a quality product done. With the tags themselves, what's been frustrating to me, and I think this is common sense. So if you're an employee or you're an owner or whoever and you are manufacturing printing stuff, if you're constantly making a mistake, like, the tags, they're not turning out well, and you obviously conscientiously know that because you're doing the process, right? If you're doing a process and stuff keeps happening, mistake, common sense would tell you, stop. I need to figure out what's going on. Either A, I need to fix what I'm doing because something's not right in the process, or B, I need to ask for help from someone that knows how to do it so they can guide me on how to do it. Now, I don't know what's going on because that seems like common sense. If you're creating products for a client, I'm the client, right? And you have a trusted relationship and you're going to give them an entire batch of clothing that's just not all there. The quality's not all there. It's subpar. That's asking for, getting that client away from you, right? And I don't know if it was intentional or not. I don't think it was, but I am not going to be printing with them anymore. It's not working out for me. It's been very frustrating. The other thing that was frustrating with the tags themselves is that this has been an ongoing problem that I don't know, maybe my patience is very long suffering, but I've repeatedly said, hey, you guys need to look at the process, what you're doing. Someone's doing it wrong. Can you please talk to your employee or whoever's doing it, because they're always wrong. Typically when I get a batch of t-shirts, there'd be orders where there'd be 10, 15 t-shirts that the tag is completely screwed up. It's extremely crooked or it's peeling, and it's like, okay, I have to put that in the reject bin. And some customers, obviously they don't care about that as much. They just care about the print, which is your main focus anyways, but that is a detail that's important and you should have a level of quality. So, there'd be batches of shirts where I just, can't sell them on the regular store at a regular price, and it's been really frustrating. Another thing for the ink itself, doubling up, that's another thing that's it should be obvious to whomever is printing, right? If it looks like this and not like this, and you're printing for a client you've had for years, why would you skimp on that and send them the product like that, right? That's been frustrating. Another thing that's been frustrating is the communication or lack thereof. They would always say, okay, it's going to be done on this day, and then it's done 3 or 4 days later. Now that screws up my schedule all the time because I can't guarantee to my customers when the product is going to arrive. For this last project, it took about a week longer than it should have, because typically I would get stuff in 2 to 3 weeks, and now it's been 4 weeks, 5 weeks, way longer than it should be. And the length of time is not even the problem for me. It's the communication of when it's going to be done. It's not expecting like a soft target, right? Now, whereas with this company that printed this one, and I use them more now, they would have a expected date of when it could be done. So I have a soft target to aim for. And if it's done a day or two after, that's not a big deal, right? But if it's done 4 or 5 a week later, which has happened multiple times printing with these people, it's just been so frustrating. And then when I can't guarantee to the customer when their items are going to arrive, what happens with that as well is that then that trust between me and the customer is breaking, right? Because I'm saying, oh, we're expecting them to be done this time and they're not done at this time. And now what's happening is like that customer is having a bad interaction with me, all because of the manufacturer and the bad interaction between me and them. So that's been very, very frustrating. So there's those 3 things: the diminishing quality of the prints, the tags, and the poor communication. And I've been struggling to do this, but I almost have to now, because it's it's only going to get worse from here on out, because my brand has been growing significantly, especially this year. And if I can't have a reliable printer to keep up with the demand, and also, the projection and the way things are going, the amount of projects I'm going to have this year is also going to be much higher. So if I can't, expect a certain quality from manufacturer, and if I can't get stuff on time, then I can no longer, work with them. So I'm going to have to fire them essentially, which has been frustrating because I've been working them 6 years and things are just not to spec. I mean, here's kind of another example of, you can definitely see the difference between the white. It just pops out more rather than this. It's just faded. That's just been so frustrating to deal with that. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to have to go look for a secondary printer. The one redeeming quality of these guys that would do a lot of my printing back then is that they would do specialty prints such as puff prints and discharge printing, all kinds of printing that this company would not be able to do. And I've talked to them about that. So I'm going to have to find a printer that can do more of the specialty prints. And they will essentially be a backup printer, and I'll give them those kinds of jobs. Whereas these guys that are printing correctly, they're going to be my main supplier now, and they kind of have been. I've actually been starting to phase out this company. They've, last month they only had one job for me. The other month they only had two. Before they'd have 3 or 4 or 5 jobs a month for me, print jobs, and now, that's what's happened. I even made a video before where I, got the heat press because I was frustrated with the tags, and I'm like, okay, as long as they can do the print well, then I'll do the tags. That's fine. And it'll be easier on our end, so there's less defects. But now that I realize that they also can't have a certain quality of print as well, it's just been basically my final straw, and my patience has run out. Now, looking back at it, I probably should have even gone away from them like last year, because these problems are kind of starting to happen around then, although not as frequent, but the frequency of the problems has finally gotten to a point where it's my last straw, so I can no longer be with them. So in conclusion, I hope you guys, learn from my mistakes. What you want to look for with a printer and a manufacturer is clear communication, not missing deadlines, or being close to that soft target, and obviously, most importantly, quality, right? Because even if they weren't the best communicators, even if they, didn't have a good timeline, but they had superior quality, that's okay, because those two things can be filled in for. So, for instance, for the timeline, if you think that, they say, oh, it's going to be done in 3 weeks, but they always get it done in 4 weeks. Okay, make the deadline in your head that this will get done in 4 weeks, and that will make up for that, right? And for communication, that's very frustrating, but you can kind of hound them and send them more emails, and then, eventually they'll get back to you, because almost every business does. But that's also frustrating. You should aim for getting someone that is competent in all three, and if they're not competent in that, move on to the next person, and you will save yourself lots of defects, lots of headaches, and lots of bad customer relationships along the road. So I hope that video helps. Hope you guys learned something from this, and I'll catch you guys later. Thanks.